Authorized Ford and Toyota dealerships serving the Cayman Islands. Coca-Cola, available across the Cayman Islands from Tortuga distributors. Accept no substitutes. Taste the feeling with Coca-Cola. Brand Source Home Gallery, inspiring luxury. West Bay Pharmacy, taking care of your health. And JN Money.
From abroad to yard.
Fast, affordable, convenient. Doctor's Hospital. Peace of mind is important when life happens. Doctor's Hospital, always there for you. Call 949-6066.
This is For the Record with Ort Connor.
Coming to you live from Radio Cayman Studio.
For the record.
For the record. For the record. Hear from your government officials, independents, and the opposition on issues that matter to you. For the record. Engage in an open dialogue between residents and lawmakers.
For the record.
For the record. For the record. Informative, impartial, insightful.
This is your talk show.
1-800-534-8255. Your calls, your input. This is For the Record. And now, your host, Ort Connor.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. O land of soft, fresh breezes and verdant trees. So fair. Today is Monday, the 29th day of August 2022, right here in the beautiful Cayman Islands. We hope and we trust that everyone had a restful, peaceful, enjoyable weekend. Those of you who are on the roads of the Cayman Islands, whether you're a pedestrian, a cyclist, or if you're operating any type of motorized vehicle, we urge you to please be extremely cautious. We expect inclement weather to come our way fairly soon this morning. It was already a bit overcast. So please be cautious out there on our busy and dangerous roads. Remember, by observing the rules of the road, then the life you save may just be your own. For those of you who are celebrating a birthday today, we want to wish you a happy birthday. We also want to remind you that For the Record, birthday shout-outs are proudly brought to you by life insurance agents Michael Webster and Randa Lawson from Cayman Insurance Center, and they remind you not to take chances with your family's future. Those of you who have lost loved ones, we want to extend our sincere condolences to you. We hope and we trust that your faith will help to carry you through these extremely challenging times, and that the memories of your loved ones will be a blessing to you as well. And I want to send out personal condolences to the family of the young man who unfortunately lost his life yesterday afternoon in the Breakers area as well. So our sincere and deepest condolences go out to you as well. For those of you who are ill and are either at home or at a medical facility here in the Cayman Islands or overseas, we wish you a speedy recovery as well. So folks, I want to thank you for loving Radio Cayman, and by extension For the Record, into your homes, into your vehicles as you traverse the busy roads of the Cayman Islands, into your places of work, wherever that may be. As you know, For the Record is a show produced by the staff and management of Radio Cayman, and it is geared towards keeping you abreast of issues as they arise and play out on the local, regional, and international scene. I am your host, Ort Connor, and you're welcome to join me every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 7:30 a.m. until 10 a.m. During that period, our phone lines are open. Back with us after a week of vacation, that beautiful radio voice of Miss Susan Watson. You can call us on our toll-free number, provided courtesy of Flo. That toll-free number is 1-800-534-8255. You can also call us on 949-8037 and 949-6990. You can email us at For the Record, one word, For the Record at candw.ky. WhatsApp us 925-3261, where you can send us a text message or leave us a voice note. the contents of which will be played during the course of the show. And of course, you can simply follow us on YouTube, and you do that by subscribing to Radio Cayman live stream. So, again, I remind you that the birthday shout-outs and For the Record proudly brought to you by insurance agents Michael Webster and Randall Lawson from Cayman Insurance Center, and they remind you, don't take chances with your family's future. So, who's celebrating a birthday today? Well, let's start with belated birthday greetings. And belated birthday greetings will go out to Mr. Lorenzo from Mango Tree Restaurant. Lorenzo celebrated his birthday, I believe it was on Friday, and unfortunately I didn't get that information to be able to give him a birthday shout out on Friday, so we're giving him a belated happy birthday shout out to Mr. Lorenzo from Mango Tree Restaurant. Also celebrating a birthday today, who do we have? We have Mr. Morgan DaCosta. He's celebrating a birthday today. And also today, Trina Moore. She's in Florida, the daughter of Mr. Alan Moore. She's also celebrating a birthday today. So we want to wish Mr. Morgan DaCosta a happy birthday, as well as Miss Katrina Moore. Happy birthday also to her. Okay. We should have in the studio with us later this morning. We're due to have Minister Andre Ebanks and his acting chief officer and a policy advisor, a senior policy advisor, in the studio with us. Nothing has changed as far as the plans are concerned. So we're still expecting them to be in the studio with us this morning. Until then, our phone lines are going to be open in the event that you want to call in. If you have something that you may want to share with us, please do so as well. Meanwhile, we're looking to see what announcements that we may have had during the weekend. Okay, here we go. Those of you who fly business class on Cayman Airways, Cayman Airways has reopened its Sir Turtle Club Lounge at Owen Roberts International Airport. And on Tuesday last, the Cayman Airways Limited hosted a special ribbon cutting ceremony to mark the official reopening of its exclusive Sir Turtle Club Lounge at Owen Roberts International Airport in Grand Cayman. So we want to congratulate Cayman Airways on that new development as well. Also, what did we have? We had the landmark ruling with the Planning Department and the National Conservation Council as well. That is still being discussed. Some persons were a little bit concerned about the terse or brief commentary that was made by the chair of the Central Planning Authority, and one would expect that any comment would be simply guarded at this point in time in the event that the Central Planning Authority or that side of government may have any plans to appeal the decision. So, of course, one would be guarded in terms of what is being done as well. So while some people are disappointed with the comments or the brief comments that were made, one can understand as well. Okay. We also have a press release in relation to radar maintenance. This was issued on the 26th of August, and we know that there were issues with the radar, and they did get expert specialists in to do the work on the radar. So here's the latest report, because of course, you've heard that we expect to have some inclement weather, lots of rain coming our way fairly soon as well. So the release speaks to the fact that an assessment of the Kerner-Gomez Doppler radar dome is currently underway to evaluate the damage caused by Tropical Storm Grace and determine an estimated completion date for the necessary repairs. So starting on Saturday, the 27th of August of this year, radar images will be unavailable during the daytime while repairs are being carried out. Radar images are expected to be available overnight. So bear in mind that as of Saturday, the 27th of August, radar images are unavailable during the daytime while repairs are being carried out. However, radar images are expected to be available overnight. The release also goes on to say that the Cayman Islands National Weather Service apologizes for any inconvenience this temporary disruption may cause users. More information on the repairs, including the estimated completion date and how these works will aim to minimize the risk of future severe weather events to the radar, will be provided once the assessment is completed. Goes on to say that the weather radar went offline last year due to a combination of issues related to the backup generator, the damaged dome, and a failed radar part. Backup generator services was restored in June of 2020, and the radar was repaired in July of 2022 as well. So, okay, yes. Okay, so we're told that the Honorable Juliana O'Connor Connell is following us, listening to us on Radio Cayman and for the record, and she is listening to us in the Amish countryside in the United States of America. So we want to welcome the Honorable Juliana O'Connor Connolly to For the Record, and like a true Caymanian, she is following us wherever she is. Always good to keep in touch with what's happening at home, as well. So, again, we want to welcome the Honorable Juliana O'Connor Connolly, who's listening to us from Amish countryside in the United States of America. Minister, good morning, and we are glad that you are listening to us. Folks, we're going to take the first commercial break. Please stay tuned. For the Record, we'll be back shortly.
The Cayman Islands boasts of a long, colorful, and rich history. In tribute to our roots, Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands, is pleased to bring you the Historical Vignette Series, brought to you by Rotary Central. For more than 110 years, Rotary members have used their passion, energy, and intelligence to take action on sustainable projects. The Cayman Islands, He hath founded it upon the seas.
Klein Astor Glidden Sr., Certificate of Honor, 1924-2016. Klein Glidden was a sergeant at arms in the Legislative Assembly, was also an elder of the West Bay Seventh-day Adventist Church. He served his country and his church with regal dignity for many years. Scores of tourists who have visited the Legislative Assembly have written to the newspapers expressing praise for this remarkable Christian gentleman who would go out of his way to make people feel at home in the Cayman Islands. He was a man with the common touch who loved his country and his job and lived his religion. He credited his wife, Eula, for his religious conversion. Their son, Klein Glidden Jr., was elected to the Legislative Assembly in 2000. Mr. and Mrs. Glidden Sr. also have a daughter and several grandchildren.
Radio Cayman's historical vignettes was brought to you by Rotary Central. For more than 110 years, Rotary members have used their passion, energy, and intelligence to take action on sustainable projects.
Register. Get your clues. Start your engines. Find the answers. The Rotary Central Gumball Car Rally is back. Exciting questions, exciting answers, exciting prizes for rally car theme, rally preparation, rally spirit, gumball rally accuracy, and more. Same day registration, 11:30 a.m. Start line Cricket Square. Start time 12:30 p.m. Saturday, September 17th. Find Gumball Rally finish line and win. Space is limited. Pre-register now. Only $125 per entry, up to 4 persons per rally car. Email rotarycentralky@gmail.com. The Rotary Central Gumball Car Rally, a fun event, not a race event. Rotary, all the good you imagine.
We think it's time you crossed over to a new vehicle. And with the Toyota Corolla Cross now at Vant Motors, you have plenty of reasons to make the switch. The crossover body and hybrid engine is a sleek design in a sturdy structure with a spacious interior that opens to extensive cargo space. Stuck in traffic? The high-performance self-charging hybrid system automatically switches between gas and electric vehicle mode, helping you lower both fuel costs and carbon emissions. The Corolla Cross has full LED lighting inside and out, an integrated display audio system with energy monitor, and a dual-zone climate control system to ensure comfort for all. Test drive the new Toyota Corolla Cross Hybrid today at Vant Motors, Walkers Road.
J and Money touching down again. Now you can send your US dollars at any location on island, including the BRAC. It's easy. Just walk with your US dollars. No need to convert to CI. This is another convenient service available at J and Money. They always find a way to make it easier and hassle-free. So remember, when you need to send your money and you only have US dollars, don't ever think of what to do. Just head straight to any J and Money location and send your money the fast, convenient, and affordable J and Money. J and Money, touching down again. J and Money, ranga to la friend.
At Doctor's Hospital, we know life happens, and usually when you least expect it. So when unexpected medical issues arise, you need quality care close to home. Located in the heart of Georgetown, our accomplished team of physicians and medical staff treat minor urgent conditions such as migraines, chest and abdominal pain, shortness of breath, burns, broken bones, open wounds, and more. 24 hours, 7 days a week with no appointment necessary. Peace of mind is important when life happens. At Doctor's Hospital, we're always here just for you. Need to speak to someone? Call 949-6066.
Hi, I'm remodeling our bathroom. I have a few questions.
Sure.
What are some ideas to make my bathroom feel larger? How do I know if I'm picking the right vanity? How do I choose a new toilet or a new countertop? Also, the lighting is terrible. Can I put a window or a skylight? And do I really need an exhaust fan?
You've come to the right place. At Brand Source, we custom design kitchen and baths, and our talented design team can help answer your questions. Whether you're looking for a modern, functional family bathroom or a luxurious personal retreat, we'll help create that beautiful space that makes your home yours. And if you're in a rush for a new look and have a limited budget, our ready-to-install bathroom vanities built with solid wood and countertops of the finest materials are a quick and easy remodeling solution.
For the very best in custom-designed kitchens and baths, visit Brand Source Home Gallery on Dorsey Drive, Industrial Park, Cayman's Kitchen and Bath Center.
Hi, I'm life insurance agent Michael Webster.
And I am Randy Lawson from Cayman Insurance Center.
Proud sponsors of the birthday shoutouts on For the Record.
Whether you're another year older or just a year wiser,
making sure your family is protected is a pretty wise choice. I'm Michael Webster at 925-5433.
And I am Randy Lawson at 322-2145. Give us a call today to find out how you can better secure your family's future.
Cayman Insurance Center, protecting you and your family so you can take back your future.
System 1 loaded.
1-800-534-8255. What is on your mind when it comes to the government, independence, and the opposition? Issues that matter to you. 1-800-534-8255. Waiting to hear from you. For the Record.
This is For the Record with Ort Connor.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. We do have our guests in the studio, and before I introduce my guests, I just want to share two bits of information with you. One of our listeners has written in and said, good morning. I'm a regular listener to your morning show. Keep up the good work. Very informative. Please send birthday wishes to our nephew, Kevin Brandon, who's having a birthday. He's celebrating a birthday tomorrow, and birthday greetings are coming from his aunts Rosita, Clincy, and Cleo. So advance birthday greetings then are going out to Mr. Kevin Brandon, and they're coming from your aunts Rosita, Clincy, and Cleo. Also, we do have belated wedding anniversary greetings going out to Mr. and Mrs. Owen Lawrence from Mount Pleasant in West Bay. They're celebrating their 49th wedding anniversary as well. Mr. and Mrs. Owen Lawrence of Mount Pleasant in West Bay. So, folks, without any further ado, it is my pleasure to have in the studio with me this morning, and I'm going to go around the table here, and not necessarily in terms of ranking, but the last person that I will introduce will then take the mic over to tell us what they're here to talk about. So, in the studio with me this morning, we have Miss Mayor Petkovsek, who is the Senior Policy Advisor in the Ministry of Investment, Innovation, and Social Development. Also with us, we have the Acting Chief Officer in the Ministry of Innovation, Investment, Innovation, and Social Development, Miss Tamara Ebanks, and the Minister himself, the Honorable Andre Ebanks, who has constitutional responsibility for the Ministry of Investment, Innovation, and Social Development. Folks, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning, sir. Good morning to all of the Cayman Islands, and good morning to Caymanians overseas.
And Minister Andre Ebanks, you always keep your promise, even though we had to delay it a few days ago. But you've always said when there is good news, when there are things to talk about, you're going to be right here and For the Record, and you have been true to your words so far. But I think we're going to probably tease our audience a little bit and just talk about the ministry in general. And then when we return from the 8 o'clock news, we're going to go into details in terms of specifically why you're here.
That is correct, and thank you, sir. You are right. I was slightly delayed, even though I kept my promise. I returned from a 7-day family vacation, which was very enjoyable. Take some time out with my wife and my kids. And I came back with a slight cold. So to protect you, I refrained until I made sure it was non-COVID.
Yes.
Got over it, and then returned this week.
Excellent. So, and you look fresh and relaxed and everything. All ready to go, raring to go.
Yes, thank you. That's a good way to put it. That's actually what came out of the brief respite. Refreshed.
Mm-hmm.
Refreshed and here to talk to you about, as you say, recap for your listening audience, the scope of the Ministry of Investment, Innovation, Social Development. few changes, an overview, and then we can get, after the news break, we can get into the meat of the discussion, which is reimagining financial assistance. Mm-hmm. So you may recall that investment, innovation, and social development is really our way of trying to join the dots to ensure that there is an appropriate level of investment. We innovate the tools that we have, mm-hmm. and then we use those tools to be able to enhance our people from a social development perspective. And we have, I think, done a pretty good job in terms of melding those subject areas together. I was keen to kind of take a step back as we are going into the break, and I'll recap this after the news break, to flesh out the approach. So initially, upon taking office, you're very excited and you want to try to do everything. But my experience in the civil service taught me that there are budget and practical realities that you can't get to everything. You'll have to take a look at the landscape and kind of imagine in your mind and try to see a critical pathway to achieve the things that you want in an order of priority. So I can't say that this is 100% correct, but it was the tools that we had at the time. Mm-hmm. Going into the finishing the 2021 budget, what we saw that we were able to accomplish was in relation to Sunrise Adult Training Center, was relocating them from West Bay on Powery Road to Elizabethan Square in town so that they had a more modern, centralized, larger facility to take on clients because they had completely outgrown their space. That took a lot of work and relocation efforts, but it got done before the end of 2021. In the meantime, we took incremental steps in the other spaces, but once we knew that project was done, it was now time to turn to NEU, because that is the essential service for those who need financial assistance quickly. And we took time to survey the department organizationally, operationally, and legislatively, and come up with a game plan while the Sunrise project was running. Once Sunrise was complete, we then pushed forward our efforts into NEU, which we'll come into and get into detail after the break. Mm-hmm. Hopefully, if our plans come to fruition, our next step would then be to then reimagine the DCFS space. Okay. And take that project on in the beginning of 2023. And then, by my calculation, around about the time that we should be, Lord willing, finished with that, we would then be getting into the budget discussions for the 2024 and 2025 budget, and then start the loop all over again. So now look at what we need to do now to advance Sunrise. They've been in that space in Elizabethan Square. That had been almost a year by that point in 2023. What's working, what's not, what's the longer-term grander vision where they have, which has been in contemplation for several years, of them having a larger facility. Can we accomplish that in the 24-25 budget? What has been working and not working if our plans come to fruition with NEU that we need to tailor, modify as we go into the 24-25 budget, and same with DCFS, and the loop starts all over again. So that's been our sort of overall broad approach, and the financial assistance bill that we'll talk about today is not all of the work, but it's a critical tool within the work.
We still have about half a minute to go.
Good.
Okay.
If you do, I'll just quickly go around the table because we've had a lateral move in terms of chief officers, and I want to be able to introduce to the public the acting chief officer, Tamara Ebanks.
Sure.
Thanks, Minister. It's my pleasure to be here, and good morning to all the listening public. I was transferred from the Ministry of Pahi in March of the beginning of the year, and we had some changes, as Minister said, and I took the role of the acting chief officer. So it's my pleasure to be in this ministry and lead this team. I started my career in social services, and I have over 20 years experience in the ministries. So I'm confident that we can really make a difference for the people in the Cayman Islands.
Okay, and I want to say, have Miss Petkovsek.
You're doing well with that.
Mayor Petkovsek introduce herself as well. Good morning.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me this morning. I have been with this ministry since January. And prior to that, I worked with the Family Resource Center. So my work has always been in the sector and in the policy space and social services. And so I'm really excited to take what I know are some of the challenges from the public eye and from the clients that I used to serve at the Family Resource Center and really be able to address them in the ministry from a policy lens. So I'm really excited about that.
Excellent, excellent. So, folks, top of the hour, 8 o'clock news. Please stay tuned. The same voices that you heard earlier, you will continue to hear when we return. So don't change that dial for the record. We'll be back immediately after the 8 o'clock news.
Thank you, Mr. Conner. And studio time by Foster's is 8 o'clock.
I just can't keep living with so much stress. I just want clarity on how to make life easier.
Maybe live well?
You're mocking me, aren't you?
No, Live Well from Foster's and CG Brick-K. It's a perfect resource that helps you plan meals with tips on staying healthy, packing lunches, working out, and managing stress.
Did you say managing stress? Where?
It's all free online at livewell.fosters.ky.
So there's hope for me?
Well, not just hope, but Foster's and CG Brick-K.
The voice of the Cayman Islands.
89.9 FM in Grand Cayman and 93.9 FM in Cayman Brac and Little Cayman.
Silver wings shining in the sunlight.
Radio Cayman.
The 8 a.m. news is brought to you by ValueMed Pharmacy. Save time and order your prescription refills online at value-medpharmacy.com. VALU-medpharmacy.com.
For today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands.
With your latest news, I'm Carsley Fuller. A participant at a local sporting event is killed on Sunday after a collision involving a motorcycle. The Royal Cayman Islands Police Service says just after 2 p.m., they and other emergency services were sent to a 911 report of the crash. The rider of the motorcycle was participating in a vehicular sporting activity at Parker's Raceway in Bodden Town when he lost control of his bike and fell from the vehicle. The Cayman Islands Fire Service attended the location to help with the wreckage and ensure the scene was safe for other emergency personnel. The man was carried to the hospital by ambulance where he was pronounced dead by the attending doctor. This is Cayman's 13th fatal crash of the year. The United Kingdom Hydrographic Office has completed a seabed mapping survey for the Cayman Islands, uncovering information about the depth and nature of the seabed and its ecosystems. The mapping of the shallow seabed from the shoreline out to the drop-off, which is about approximately 130 feet, provides government with a, quote, clear picture of the bottom structures, including coral, sands, and seagrass beds. The data will facilitate the creation of more comprehensive storm surge and flooding models, enabling effective mitigation strategies for the impact of severe weather and climate change. Back in November, the 3 Cayman Islands underwent a seabed mapping exercise by international geodata specialists as part of a £1 million cross-overseas territory project funded by the UK government's Overseas Territory Seabed Mapping Program. Additionally, UKHO have also installed 4 tide gauges, which remotely monitor sea level change in the Cayman Islands. Speaking of climate change, a delegation from Cayman led by the Premier traveled to the Bahamas to participate in the Caribbean Regional Heads of Government meeting in preparation for COP27. Delegates met to discuss themes of importance to the region, mitigation, adaptation, and loss and damage support, and issues such as transparency and reporting. Premier the Honourable Wayne Panton says the conference provided meaningful opportunities for relationship building with regional counterparts and collaboration between the United Kingdom overseas territories on a needs-oriented strategic approach. He has stressed that climate change is a shared challenge globally, but even more so for a regional perspective. Meeting with the esteemed delegates from other Caribbean countries allows Cayman to, quote, identify our susceptibilities as small island developing states in our region and develop a forum for creating unified solutions. Now with a check of international news, here's the BBC, which will take us out of the newscast. I'm Carsley Fuller from Radio Cayman's newsroom.
BBC News. NASA has put on hold the countdown for the launch of its most powerful rocket less than an hour before Artemis 1 had been due to take off for an unmanned test flight to the moon. The US Space Agency said it was investigating a possible crack on the rocket and trying to get one of the engines down to operating temperature. The Artemis program is aimed at returning humans to the moon. The Ukrainian military says its long-awaited offensive on the southern front has begun. It says the army has broken through the first line of Russian defence around the main city of Kherson. According to the Southern Command, fighters from the self-proclaimed Donetsk People's Republic have retreated from their positions in the Kherson region, and the Russian paratroopers who supported them have fled. Supporters of the powerful Iraqi Shia cleric Muqtada al-Sadr have stormed the government palace in Baghdad shortly after their leader announced his withdrawal from politics. A little earlier, Iraqi security forces declared a total curfew in Baghdad and ordered all protesters to leave the high-security green zone. International help has begun trickling into Pakistan as the authorities there struggle to cope with what is being seen as the worst flooding in the country's history. About 33 million people are affected. Pakistan has said the assertion by the Taliban that it allows the United States to use Pakistani airspace to operate drones over Afghanistan is highly regrettable conjecture. But the Taliban say their information show that US drone attacks, like the one last month that killed Ayman al-Zawahiri, are entering Afghanistan from Pakistan. The Norwegian carbon dioxide storage company Northern Lights has announced its first commercial deal. From 2025, it'll take 800,000 tonnes of carbon dioxide each year from the Dutch fertiliser manufacturer Yara and inject it into rocks under the North Sea. That's the BBC News.
The 8 a.m. news is brought to you by ValueMed Pharmacy. Save time and order your prescription refills online at value-medpharmacy.com. VALU-medpharmacy.com.
Now, more than ever, supporting your immune system is crucial to helping your body fight off illnesses like the common cold, the flu, and COVID-19. At ValueMed Pharmacy on Walkers Road and in Panton, we carry all the essential vitamins and minerals to help support your immune system and improve your overall health. Some of our top immunity support picks are vitamin C, vitamin D, zinc, elderberry, and quercetin, or the popular 7-in-1 immunity support. Our pharmacists are always on hand to help guide you and answer any questions. Visit ValueMed Pharmacy on Walkers Road or Panton. Live happy, live healthy with ValueMed Pharmacy.
Stay in touch with Radio Cayman for the latest in news and information.
Follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Download the Radio Cayman app or log on to our website, www.radiocayman.gov.ky.
Radio Cayman, your voice, your choice, your radio.
As a general rule, your septic tank should be pumped out by a professional every 3 years. During hurricane season, however, it is important to keep your septic tank at least partially full to keep it from floating or collapsing during a storm. For more useful hurricane preparedness tips, visit the Water Authority's website at www.waterauthority.ky or follow us on social media.
Breitling Watches are defined by quality, innovation, and style. And you have the chance to win one in August during Kirk Freeport's 50th anniversary sweepstakes. Each month, lucky shoppers have the chance to win a piece of jewelry or a watch from luxury brands. Every purchase of $100 at any Kirk Freeport store gains you entry into the monthly drawing. So stop in today. Next up, September's prize is the Chopard Happy Dreams bracelet. View terms and conditions on KirkFreeport.com.
The 8:12 a.m. weather report brought to you by CG Britcay, where people come first.
Head east on Cove Road. Sharp left on Church Street. Sharper left. No, your other left. Did I say left? Nope, you missed it. Okay, I'm lost.
With money-saving bundling options for home and motor, we're like a GPS that doesn't steer you wrong. CG Britcay. Good like that.
Let's stop and ask for directions.
Pleasant good morning. Let's take a look at the very latest weather report. Current temperature is 82 degrees. Relative humidity is 82%. The barometric pressure is 29.93 inches and rising. The wind is out of the east-southeast at 10 knots. Overnight low temperature was 78 degrees. Synopsis indicate a tropical wave over the western Caribbean will support showers and thunder across the Cayman area through tomorrow. Radar images show patches of scattered showers in and around the Cayman area moving towards the west.
The forecast for today and tonight calling for partly cloudy skies with a 60% chance of showers and some thunder. Temperatures today will be in the upper 80s and will fall to the upper 70s tonight. Winds will be southeast at 5 to 10 knots for today, and for tonight, southeast at 10 to 15 knots. Seas will be slight to moderate with wave heights of 2 to 4 feet. Today's high tide will occur this morning at 10:33, low tide this afternoon at 4:21, and a high tide again tonight at 10:26. The sun will set this evening at 6:41 and will rise tomorrow morning at 11 minutes past 6. And the outlook is calling for upper level system to support cloudy spells, some showers and thunder across the Cayman area at least through Wednesday. That's the very latest on your weather report.
The 8:12 a.m. weather report brought to you by CG Britcay, where people come first.
Good morning, everyone. Hello? Hello? Oh, sorry, I was on mute. Okay, I see we have just about everyone, and of course Tom drops off, as per usual. Let's just wait a minute here. He always comes right back, and we're almost ready, and... oh, whoever's dog that is, please go on mute. Why won't it let me share my screen? Okay, looks like we're ready to start.
We're like a video conference with no technical issues. CG Britcay. Good like that.
The traffic report is brought to you by Subway. Planning a meeting, event, or office celebration? Visit subway.ky to place your catering order today.
Top of the morning to you. Let's take a look at what's happening on our roads. Busy traffic coming off of the Esther Tibbetts Highway heading towards the Butterfield roundabout. Slight delays expected. As we look to the east on Shamrock Road, traffic is steady but flowing. Further down, as you head to the Linford Pearson Highway, traffic is steady. And coming off of Agnes Way, traffic is busy. Busy traffic heading to Georgetown on Crew Road. And eastbound traffic on Crew Road is moving along moderately. Some roads are wet, so please drive with extra caution. Northstown Road, steady but flowing traffic. And from the West Bay four-way stop, moderate flow of traffic. And as we look to downtown Georgetown on Edward Street in front of the Georgetown Post Office, traffic is moving on pretty good. And traffic flowing pretty good on Shedden Road. Light to moderate traffic flow coming from the West Bay four-way stop, as well as on Owen Roberts Drive. And as we look to Godfrey Nixon Way and Eastern Avenue, traffic is moderate in both directions. That's what's happening on your roads. Join us again at about 10 minutes after 12 o'clock. We'll give you another traffic report. Remember, click it or ticket.
From boat days to beach gatherings, leave the catering to Subway. Choose from small and large sandwich platters, double meat wrap platters, and top it off with optional cookie platters for dessert. Or ask about our Subway box to go with the option of 6-inch or foot-long sandwich, 1 cookie, and 1 bag of chips for all occasions and celebrations. Let Subway focus on the food so you can focus on the fun. Visit subway.ky for catering options. Subway. Eat fresh.
The traffic report is brought to you by Subway. Planning a meeting, event, or office celebration? Visit subway.ky to place your catering order today.
At Kirk's Home Center, we can make your life much better. We got it all together. We got a great deal in store for you. From cookware to stereos, from power tools to plumbing supplies. Yeah, we got the best goods with the best price and a service to make you smile. At Kirk's Home Center, we got a great deal in store for you.
Your Radio Cayman 6 p.m. news, Monday through Friday, is brought to you by Logic. Your life connected.
For the record, with Ort Connor.
Initiating system. For information that matters. For the record, with Orit Connor. Continues right now on Radio Cayman.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. As promised, returning in the studio with us, the Minister with responsibility for investment, innovation, and social development, the Honorable Andre Ebanks. Also in the studio with us is Acting Chief Officer, Ms. Tamara Ebanks, and the Senior Policy Advisor, Mayor Petkovsek. Folks, welcome back to For the Record. And Minister, we're going to throw the mic back over to you, I believe, right?
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be back. Good morning again to all of the Cayman Islands and Caymanians overseas. For folks who did not hear the intro prior to the news break, I'll just very quickly recap.
Certainly.
In terms of our overall approach upon taking office and focusing initially in the 2021 budget on relocating the Sunrise Adult Training Center for differently abled adults that needed a new training facility, moving them from West Bay to Elizabethan Square in Georgetown so that they had a more centralized, a larger and more modern facility. And then we turned our efforts both operationally, legislatively, and organizationally to looking at the financial assistance space.
Right.
And I mentioned earlier that there was a lateral move at the level of chief officer in the ministry, and I'm now ably aided by acting chief officer Tamara Ebanks, which is a kind of a surreal moment because we've known each other since we were kids. And her dad used to be my dad's boss at British American Bank.
Yes.
So it's kind of a surreal moment. Also means we're getting old. But that is just a lead-off introduction to our current project, which is the Financial Assistance Bill. 2022. And as I mentioned prior to the break, it is a important but just a tool in the toolkit to reimagine financial assistance. So I thought what we could do for your listening audience today is to kind of take a step back and have the audience see the reimagining plan through our eyes and take you through the operational aspects, the policy aspects, and then the aspects of the bill.
Excellent.
And then, in your usual fashion, you're very gentlemanly and scholarly with your interventions. Please do make it as interactive as you can.
I certainly will.
Where you have the questions. So I think I'll have Mahir start off with the current state of NEU.
Sure, thank you, Minister. So when we were reimagining the Needs Assessment Unit, we weren't just looking, as the Minister said, at the legislative piece. We were looking at the department as a whole. And so there were many challenges that we knew the department was experiencing. But to really combat that, the first thing we wanted to do was look at who the NAU is serving. So one of the biggest things, we went back into our data to really understand. And at the end of June, the NAU was serving 1,419 households. So that could be individuals, it could be families. And within that, 56% of them were older persons. And 31% of them are adults with dependents. There is a misconception about who the NAU serves. A lot of people think that it might just be people who could work, as in like an unemployment type thing. But we found that there are only 3% of people that NAU serves who are adults with no dependents. No older persons in their households, no people with disabilities in their households. And 3%. That's 3%. And so we wanted to keep those people at the forefront when we're trying to reimagine what the NAU can look like. So knowing that some of your listeners may have been to the Needs Assessment Unit on Grand or in the BRAC, and both of those spaces are really they're not fit for purpose anymore. The Needs Assessment Unit in Grand Cayman has a outside waiting area because their inside space is not enough. And if we're keeping our vulnerable people in mind, the older people who are primarily going to the Needs Assessment Unit, that space is no longer adequate. And in the BRAC, the space is shared with the Department of Children and Family Services, and they have a very small portion of that space. So we're looking at reimagining the physical spaces of the Needs Assessment Unit as well. So first and foremost, on Grand Cayman, we know that they're in a very centralized location in Georgetown, so we want to keep them in that location as much as possible. So we're in talks with the landlord about expanding that space itself, and that space would then include space for a larger reception area, more staff that we've budgeted for, and a call center.
So if I could interject, just to stick a pin and emphasize 2 points. So going back to the client population, the other sort of, I think, 56% older persons. And then there's another about 8% that are either permanently disabled or temporarily disabled.
Mm-hmm.
So that means that just about 2/3 of the client book is the exact people that government should be assisting. It's almost an obligation. But the good news that I want to draw out of the stat that Mahir raised is that means that the third, or the adults that are maybe able, that's the portion of the population that we seek to transition to work. The good news in that is that because that's the population size, it's not as though 90% of the client population was that, because that would be a much challenging stat. So that's the good news to draw out for the listening audience. Doesn't mean that it'll make it super easy. It'll still have to be a challenging exercise, but it's not as bad as it could have been. The other thing that's near and dear to all of us is, including the department, is the NEU space. Don't know if you've been there personally, but if you're there on very urgent, critical circumstances, the reception area is just not fit for purpose. So the space that Mahir is talking about is, there was on the same premises a Harley-Davidson shop that's moved out. We're seeking to move the reception area to that space to make it much larger, much more comfortable, and a call center where folks are dedicated to just answering the phone.
Mm-hmm. So how important it is to applicants who come there for them to feel comfortable, for them to feel that they're appreciated to a certain extent in terms of having that surrounding that is welcoming, that they don't feel that they're not only physically exposed to a certain extent, but the mental exposure as well.
Absolutely. I mean, it's really important to us, keeping in mind who the population is, and regardless, these are Caymanian people who really deserve to access services with dignity. And for us, we want them to be able to access the services they need, because they're accessing services because they need those services, particularly keeping in mind the older persons, the people with disabilities, the families that are coming to the unit. And so the entire reimagining is about bringing that dignity to being able to access services for the time that you need those services.
Excellent.
And it's also giving the department more tools to do their job. So you want to touch on human resources and the count.
Absolutely. So previously, our needs assessment unit had 36 staff in total, and 19 of them were needs assessment officers, is what they used to be called. Now we've expanded that to add 13 new staff, 6 of whom will be financial assistance officers. That will be their new title. And going with that, at least one of those staff is going to be located in the BRAC, because we know that our sister islands also have people who require services from our departments. And so at least one of those financial assistance officers will be located in the BRAC. But we've also added additional call center staff, because we understand that some of the challenges that the public has about being able to reach the department, and that has been in our mind about the physical space as well as the staffing. And these are all things that we have been considering, as the minister mentioned, since last year, and we've budgeted for these changes already in this 2-year cycle.
Excellent.
It was part of the planning exercise during the 2021 period when you're planning for the 2022 and 2023 budget. So as I mentioned before the news break, as we're actively working on Sunrise, we were laying the plans for this groundwork for this moment in time now. So we don't require supplementary funding for the changes that we're proposing now. So that's operationally and organizationally, legislatively and policy perspective. At the moment, the NEU is operating, or I should say the financial assistance system of the country is operating under the Poor Persons Relief Act, 1997 revision. Its enactment was in 1964. And has no supporting regulations underneath it ever. It's 5 sections, and that includes the first section that tells you the name of the law, so really in substance 4 sections. It cannot, for a budget that we have for NEU, for it's almost approximately $14 million per year, possibly govern that system anymore.
Yes, yeah.
It must be replaced with a modern piece of financial assistance legislation, which was part of an Auditor General's report from 2015. So with that knowledge in mind, and knowing that if we're going to reimagine the space, it also has to do with its legislation. So it took a great deal of work, and it took rounds and rounds of consultation. We had focus groups. So maybe to give the public some insight, rather than attempting to just write something on our own, we had a broad outline that we came into the ministry that we started off with. But we really needed to get impact from individuals that are stakeholders under NEU in some degree or fashion, to understand what they saw as the barriers or the pain points, and to, as much as possible, not just craft a piece of legislation that's only answering to, as important as that is, an Auditor General's report, but it also answers the real feedback of the department and its users and stakeholders. So we had focus groups from government departments, nonprofit organizations, current clients. I made a deliberate intervention to put forward clients I knew had complaints. So there wasn't a cherry picking of the clients who were just getting maybe in their minds favorable treatment from the department, those who have active complaints who've written to the ministry, landlords who provide rental accommodation. We also had take a pause because we were almost about to complete there. And then I attended the Alex Panton Foundation Youth Symposium, and it occurred to all of us, which is a constant challenge that we have to remember in this country, is to remember those with mental health. So that symposium made us actually call time out and say, all right, this might delay our project plan slightly, but this is an important set of stakeholder feedback. So the youth ambassadors from that program were then included, and also mental health practitioners. And that feedback, I think we would all agree, was invaluable. So once we collated that and asked legal drafting to make the appropriate changes, made presentations to caucus and cabinet, we thought that we had a bill, which is what you see published on the website now, legislation website and in the Gazette, of the Financial Assistance Bill 2022.
Excellent. So you spoke about some of the numbers and also the legislation from the 1960s and the most recent update, 1997, I believe it was. What has changed so dramatically over the years when we look back to the 60s, and as far as our society is concerned, what are the additional pressures, the additional complications that we have now, that people experience now, that for some reason they didn't experience in the 60s? Hence one of the reasons probably why the legislation at that time was so either simplified or not so detailed, because you didn't have such a large constituency to have to address.
Yes, it's an insightful question. So you would imagine that the population would have obviously been smaller.
Yes.
The range of social issues should not have been as complex then as it's grown and multiplied now. And the budget probably wouldn't have been as large by extension. So I think what the Auditor General was pointing out in 2015 is that you now have such a large system to manage. This law can't possibly govern that. You'll need, which is what we'll go into, unless you have to take a break, go into the different parts of the legislation. But as a quick summary before the break, you had to really outline what's the function of the department. That's not laid out anywhere. So what they're operating with now is a policy that I think was enacted in 2014, which is just a cabinet policy. It's not legislation, so a lot of clients don't even know necessarily where to find it. So you need a public document passed by Parliament, legislation that sets out the functions of the department, what they can, what they can't do, what are the conditions on which you can receive financial assistance, who's entitled in law to even apply in the first place. You need all of these things enshrined in law. And I could see with a very small population in 1964, and you're trying to help as many people as you can, that level of legislation probably would have been...
Probably had less than 10,000 population of less than 10,000.
That wouldn't have been called for at that time.
Yeah.
You can see why it would have been scant. But at this time, it's just not fit for purpose.
Okay, so we're going to take a commercial break. When we return, Minister, I want you to also touch on the fact that we do have a constitution from 2009, a new constitution with a Bill of Rights enshrined in that, and how important it is for this proposed legislation as well to ensure that it is compliant with our Bill of Rights and the government's obligation under a Bill of Rights as well. Folks, please stay tuned. For the record, we'll be back shortly.
We think it's time you crossed over to a new vehicle. And with the Toyota Corolla Cross, now at Vant Motors, you have plenty of reasons to make the switch. The crossover body and hybrid engine is a sleek design in a sturdy structure with a spacious interior that opens to extensive cargo space. Stuck in traffic? The high-performance self-charging hybrid system automatically switches between gas and electric vehicle mode, helping you lower both fuel costs and carbon emissions. The Corolla Cross has full LED lighting inside and out, an integrated display audio system with energy monitor, and a dual-zone climate control system to ensure comfort for all. Test drive the new Toyota Corolla Cross Hybrid today at Vant Motors, Walkers Road.
What's that? No sugar, same amazing taste? Coca-Cola Zero Sugar is here to stay. Classic taste, pure satisfaction. Be sure to stop into any Tortuga location and get your own case of Coke Zero. Or grab an ice-cold one straight from the cooler. Brought to you by Tortuga Distributors Limited. Coca-Cola, taste the feeling, Cayman.
Make your house into a home. Welcome to Brand Source Home Gallery, your source for premium products and a premium experience. We'll design and install your dream kitchen with crafted cabinets, complemented with elegant appliances. We'll fill it with quality houseware and cookware. Custom-designed closet and storage solutions organize and beautify any area. And with the finest bedding, you'll get a perfect night's sleep knowing Brand Source Home Gallery has everything you need to make your house a home.
So much happening so fast, too much. It is hard for me to follow my health care instructions. The private counseling with West Bay Pharmacy literally saved my life.
At West Bay Pharmacy, we know how complex medications can be. Our pharmacists are delighted to offer you personalized one-on-one healthcare counseling, free medication review, therapeutic callbacks, and we will liaise with your physician to ensure you receive the best in quality medical care.
Quality of life has a whole new meaning with the right pharmacy to support you. Thank you, West Bay Pharmacy.
West Bay Pharmacy in Centennial Towers. Convenient quality care is just around the corner. Now you can WhatsApp your West Bay Pharmacy prescriptions to 516-0777.
System 1 loaded.
1-800-534-8255. What is on your mind when it comes to the government, independence, and the opposition? Issues that matter to you. 1-800-534-8255. Waiting to hear from you. For the record.
This is For the Record with Ort Connor.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. It is my pleasure to have in the studio with me this morning Minister Andre Ebanks, who has constitutional responsibility for investment, innovation, and social development. Also in the studio with us, the acting chief officer in the ministry, Ms. Tamara Ebanks, and the senior policy advisor, Mayor Petkovsek. We're discussing the landmark financial assistance bill, which is designed to replace the Poor Persons Relief Act with a modern legislative framework which will set the stage for more effective service, public finance, accountability, and a bridge to self-sufficiency for able clients. But folks, I'm just reading that. But the persons who really know the details of all of this are right in the studio with us. And I'm going to pass the mic back over to Minister Andre Ebanks to talk about the constitutional responsibilities that we also have, and in particular, a Bill of Rights.
Thank you, sir. So to pick up where we left off, it would be remiss of any legislation to be incompatible with the Bill of Rights. Yeah. So one of the key stakeholders that I didn't mention before the break, that I should mention, I won't say an individual name, but I'll just say we have, because I don't want to tease her, but we have a very bright legislative counsel who's drafter. And that's often a post that's overlooked and not highlighted often in the legislative process. They are a special breed of lawyer, and their job is to point out that whether the bill or any provision thereof is incompatible, not just with the Bill of Rights, but any other. So that had to be checked. Other things needed to be checked: data protection, freedom of information, the Maintenance Act. And at times when you're sitting with a drafter and you want a provision to look a particular way, they'll say, no, Minister, you'll have to do this, and this, and because of that law, you'll have to be able to word it this way, and you have to take that advice, because it's better to take the advice then than for someone to point it out on the floor of Parliament and have a large gaping omission or deficiency. So at times you do have to think back, okay, we want it this way. She's saying it can't be done this way, but if we word it this way, we can get to the same result. So yes, all of that was taken on board as part of the process. So if I may, we would now seek to take your listening audience through the different parts of the bill.
Sure.
So there's obviously the introduction section and key definitions, defined terms that be through the bill. And then part 2 really then sets out the framework of the Department of Financial Assistance.
So this is the first time the Department of Financial Assistance, as it will be renamed following when this legislation is commenced, hopefully if this legislation is commenced. So this is the first time the Department of Financial Assistance, which is now the Needs Assessment Unit, will ever be established in legislation. So Part 2 establishes it in legislation, and it talks about what the functions of the unit are and how they carry out their work.
Okay.
So that includes, the functions of the department are to manage and administer the funds appropriated by Parliament for the purpose of providing financial assistance. That is the core of what they do. To do that, they also conduct assessments and make inquiries to ascertain the circumstances of individuals, applicants, recipients, or any members of their household. And as is common in legislation, any other functions as Cabinet may assign for that department. To do that, they could also ask someone to provide any documents that they require, meet at a time or place, whether that be the Needs Assessment Unit or somewhere else. And they could also, in certain circumstances, the department does attend someone else's household with their consent. And that could be in circumstances where the person is vulnerable and unable to leave their household, or if they're making inquiries as to whether or not to verify the particulars of the application itself.
Okay. And regulations are coming along with the bill as well. They're being developed at the same time.
So we're going to come on to those once we finish going through the parts of the bill.
Okay.
Part 3 sets out who's eligible, the principal persons who are eligible to apply for financial assistance. So those are Caymanians, a spouse or a civil partner of a Caymanian, a guardian of a dependent of a Caymanian. That is already the current state in NEU under policy, but it's critically important to ensure that that is actually enshrined in the legislation for all to see and to know there'd be a violation for anybody else, unless there are exceptional circumstances, which we'll come on to.
Okay.
And then we also talk about the grant, what happens on the grant of the application. So the powers the director has, the amount of financial assistance, the conditions that can be attached, the procedure for payments, and then if the applicant wants the decision to be reconsidered, that's now built in for the director to have to reconsider.
Okay.
In terms of the conditions that can be attached, this is also focused now primarily on that 1/3 of the population where they are able individuals. And that recipient must register with the department, could be asked to register with the Department of Work, attend additional educational courses or training, take up employment, internship, and apprenticeship, engage in volunteer work with a nonprofit organization, attend a parenting program, engage in mental health services or substance abuse, and also maybe submit to a medical or psychiatric assessment. So I think the point that I'd want to highlight for the listening audience is for that 1/3 that is able or could be able, is to try to find mechanisms to transform that person from the station in life they're in now to a station where they can be more productive. So I'll give you a real life example that I didn't conceive. There was a program I attended the kickoff of for a Superior Auto this Saturday gone, in which they took young Caymanian, and they were males, into learning how to be a mechanic and with job prospects after. Not saying it'll be that program. That program is pretty self-sufficient, but what we'd be looking for is programs like that to say, if in exchange for the benefit, this is a trade or an apprenticeship that you could now participate in. The goal being that you're getting the aid for the time being, but hopefully you've now increased your job prospects and become more marketable in the labor market, and then can go off on your own, and then we can do the same for the next person, with the overarching goal and strategy being that over time we'd like to see that pie chart of the 1/3 decrease, so that most of the NEU focus goes towards those who are permanently disabled and older persons.
Okay. Well, what you just explained there, Minister, one of our listeners has written in and basically says that the new programs and systems are well and good, but what is being done to help the intrinsic native issues like eroding identity, low self-worth, constant degrading of work, housing, education, and health standards. But you have spoken there about the fact that you're taking this steps further, not just looking at how can we assist you financially, but how can we prepare you to assist yourself
holistically
as well, the holistic approach. Yes.
And the writer has a point that part of this is also to create an atmosphere, which is why they were deliberately stakeholders in the focus groups of the other government departments, to say we won't be able to do this on our own. We're going to have key relationships with health and with labor, particularly education and also the youth, to see how we can really blend these programs together. So you don't run into a situation where we've done our part in the ministry and then say, well, that's the other ministry or that's the other department's issue. That I don't think is good enough. It requires a coordinated approach. And in fairness to all those who participated in the focus groups, those cross ministries are actually excited because they see this as a tool in which we can assist them with their challenges.
Okay. Now, Minister, I note here that one specific aspect of this piece of legislation as well, and I think persons would be extremely receptive to this, because sometimes we have heard people complain, about how things are portioned out. I'm trying to, says adopts a more holistic approach to individuals who are receiving government's financial assistance, including the introduction of conditions that will be attached in particular for households with adult members who are able to work. Now, some of those persons who may be a little bit critical of giving financial assistance to persons. Sometimes they without knowing the facts of the situation, you get these common comments, about, people need to get out there and work. They have family members, what are their family members doing, for them as well? And obviously you have recognized that, and that is being addressed in this bill as well.
Yeah. And this is, again, where the importance of ensuring the operational piece of the department and how they're examining the individual, and then being able to contact another ministry or another department to be able to assist with the specific underlying root cause. Because one of the other things that I'm excited about that's outside of the legislation for a moment is us spending the capital to enhance NEU's database. Mm-hmm. Because right now, I think if we can give them more resources so that they're able to convert services in a more efficient manner, then the officers can spend more time actually diagnosing what exactly is the issue. And as I said, when we are in focus groups with the other departments, there are some, I must say, exceptional civil servants who are saying this is what we need. Because without the data, we can't make heads or tails of whether Bobby or Sally is saying that this is the case or not, unless we join forces to be able to address the root cause. Once we start getting to root causes in this country, we can really then begin to turn the social development page.
Okay, we're going to take a commercial break. When we return, Minister, this particular section, and you mentioned it earlier as well, in terms of the legislation that's being introduced, and that is to build in necessary transparencies and accountability for decisions, including dealing with grievances, and a new appeals tribunal, as well as the protection of personal information. Talking about dealing with grievances and a new appeals tribunal, we here in the Cayman Islands, sometimes because of our size and our familiarity with our legislators, target our legislators and go to them and say, I'm having difficulties, you need to do something about it. And we really, really need to get away from that type of a system. Even if it means, for instance, that legislators, they have their constituency offices, they have certain financial assistance or finances that they have to maintain that office, and you have the skill set within that office that someone can call in and say, I'm having a problem, and rather than having to come to you as the minister, that person can navigate, the landscape as far as government is concerned, and not necessarily have the minister directly involved in this. And I see this piece, this portion of the legislation being able to accomplish that and take some of the pressure off individual legislators, because we in the Cayman Islands are accustomed, if we don't get something done, I'm going to go to the higher up. I'm not going to take those incremental steps and and go up the chain of command. I'm going to go directly to them. So I want you to talk a little bit more about that as well. Sure. Folks, please stay tuned for the record. We'll be back shortly.
60 and bossy with J and money. When a trip it easy, trust me. Yeah. Come on, just send some money. I instant entry. Look how you're lucky. Bossy, J and money, bossy. J and money, send you go a yard. Bossy, Jamaica well bossy. 60 and bossy. We well proudy.
Celebrate Jamaica 60 with J and money for a chance to win a dream vacation for two to Jamaica, including airfare, resort stay, and more. Send money for a chance to win. Your loved ones will also be entered for a chance to win a brand new car. Competition runs from now until December 24th. J and money 60 and bossy enough.
Call 345-945-2014 for details. Available at J and Money locations across the Cayman Islands.
Bossy, Jamaica well bossy. 60 and bossy.
No J and bank account required.
At Doctors Hospital, we know life happens, and usually when you least expect it. So when unexpected medical issues arise, you need quality care close to home. Located in the heart of Georgetown, our accomplished team of physicians and medical staff treat minor urgent conditions such as migraines, chest and abdominal pain, shortness of breath, burns, broken bones, open wounds, and more. 24 hours, 7 days a week with no appointment necessary. Peace of mind is important when life happens. At Doctors Hospital, we're always here just for you. Need to speak to someone? Call 949-6066.
The 8:12 a.m. weather report, Monday through Friday, is proudly sponsored by CG Britke. Insurance, health, pensions, life, where people come first.
For the record, with Ort Connor.
Initiating system.
For information that matter. For the record, with Ort Connor. Continues right now on Radio Cayman.
Good morning. Welcome back to For the Record. In the studio with me, Minister Andre Ebanks and his support staff, his acting chief officer, as well as the senior policy advisor. Minister, over to you.
So before the break, you posed an interesting question, which is the direct role a legislator may play, or in particular a minister, particularly the minister who might have direct responsibility of either a constituent or a voter coming directly to the minister or the legislator because they're unable to fulfill a application process. And this may not necessarily be unique to NEU, but it does come up from time to time. So I can't say you're wrong in that, even though my door is always open and I try to respond as quickly as I can.
Sure.
But what we're trying to do here, which is what you were pointing out, is to build a system in a way to lessen that feeling of having to go to the legislator, that the system is working so efficiently that there isn't a need to do that.
Yes.
Because it also would put the department in an awkward position of having what they're following now of a policy from 2014 and trying to adhere to that as best as possible because that's cabinet issued, versus what a legislator is calling them to say, oh, look, this family needs help. So what we're trying to do is design a process in a way that is as clear and transparent as possible with enough resources in the department so it works efficiently as possible. When we finish going through the bill, we'll touch on a little bit of what we're contemplating in the regulations where there would be exceptional circumstances where you would suspend normal protocols or procedures because the situation is just that urgent.
Yes.
If there's a fire, for example. But ordinarily, outside of unique situations like that, the system should just flow.
Okay.
But you were also mentioning, which is where we can touch into some of the other procedural aspects that are in the bill in terms of reconsideration and also the appeals process.
Yes.
So you were talking about when someone is unhappy with the decision that the department has made. So now, and this is part of the response also to the OAG report from 2015 that the minister was speaking about, where now there will be a reconsideration process where someone is aggrieved by any aspect of the decision, the amount, the time that you're allotted for financial assistance, the conditions that are placed upon you. You can ask for a reconsideration from the department on any of the decisions made. If you still remain aggrieved after that reconsideration process, there is now an appeals tribunal that will come into play when this legislation commences. That appeals tribunal, we have thought very closely about who should make up that appeals tribunal. So the chairperson will be someone with 5 years of experience in law. The deputy chairperson will be someone with 5 years of experience in health and human services, staying connected to the field that we and the people that we're serving. And the other person will have 3 years of experience in finance. And the last two people will be community members, laypersons in our community. There will also be a secretary appointed to the appeals tribunal, and they can reverse, set aside, make any new decisions that they see fit for that individual following a hearing process.
So it's almost like a rehearing of the application.
Exactly.
Okay. Now, when we look at the typical appeals tribunal, and when you look at the circumstances that you may be dealing with under this piece of legislation where there may be immediate needs that have to be addressed, are you looking in any way to streamline this appeals process so that it doesn't, fall within the routine common appeals process?
There are things that'll come in operationally, procedurally for the appeals tribunal where things could happen faster, but where we've put that into other aspects of the bill is while someone is making an application, if there are emergency circumstances, for example, the department can issue financial assistance while an application is in process. And so there's different aspects where we have built in the emergency aspect of, because we know the clientele that we're working with.
Okay. Now, I know that this is a touchy subject also, but there are those persons who believe that some people are gaming the system and sometimes they don't recognize the family connections that people have, and they may sort of compartmentalize the us and them situation. And this piece of legislation also speaks to who will be eligible and not eligible, for financial assistance as well, right?
Absolutely. And this will now be enshrined in law. So there is no question about who is eligible for financial assistance or who is not, because there's nothing that can be done that's in breach of the law.
Yes, got you.
And just to touch on the appeals, and it connects and loops back to the question you originally started about the legislator getting involved. This then, in a good way, takes me out of it. And I mean that in a good way, because it can be uncomfortable where the department has made a decision, the person feels aggrieved and then comes to the minister. I'm always trying to make sure that I make the call strictly by the book as it stands, which is the 2014 policy, because I don't want there to be any sort of accusation that I only helped or overruled the department for political purposes. So this is where, if you have an appeals tribunal, a person's appointed, one is an attorney and several other individuals, you then take the minister and you take the politics out of it, so that tribunal just calls balls and strikes like a referee.
Okay.
In terms of gaming the system, that then naturally flows into Part 5 of the bill, which now includes offenses and penalties. So for individual officers, they have to be bound by confidentiality and can't disclose unless otherwise for lawful purposes, which is hugely important because you're dealing with some very sensitive information, people who are in desperate need. In addition to that, there also has to be some recourse for the department ensuring that they're not getting false or misleading information from the applicant. We would all hope that doesn't happen, but to your question about gaming the system, we now need some teeth that if that does occur, what is going to be the consequence?
And so this will be an offense and is liable on summary conviction to a fine of $3,000 or to imprisonment for a term of 6 months, or both. So if someone is providing false or misleading information to the department, that is now liable as an offense. And also to what the minister is saying about confidentiality of information by officers of the department, there will also be confidentiality by that appeals tribunal that I was speaking about earlier.
Okay. Now, also, I think, and this stays basically within the category that you're talking about, how much does the legislation empower administrators to look into a person's financial background to be able to verify? We hear people complain, they want me to provide this, they want me to provide that, not realizing that, at the end of the day, you have to ensure that you're in compliance with, any legislation that is in place, and that there's a certain amount of due diligence that has to take place.
And that's the section I spoke about earlier, which speaks to the functions of the department, and that the department can require someone to provide documentation. And all of the documentation that the department is asking for is to verify the particulars of an application, to verify that this person or their household is in need of the financial assistance that they're requesting. And so the department within the legislation now, because they will be established in the legislation, will have the ability to do that.
But to try to ease the administrative burden, because it is a lot of documentation, which is why outside of the legislation we're trying to enhance the level of technology, because a number of the clients have smartphones. So you might want to touch on our accomplishments in terms of making the online application. You want to go to the break?
Yeah, we're going to go to the break. And Minister, I'm going to extend the invitation for you to stay as long as you wish. We can go until 10 o'clock. Not sure what other commitments that you have, but as long as I want to give you an opportunity to cover every aspect of this piece of legislation. At some point in time, we'd also want you to tell our audience when this will be introduced into Parliament as well. Folks, please stay tuned for the record. We'll be back shortly.
89.9 Radio Cayman helps you to weather the storm during this hurricane season.
One of the most crucial elements of hurricane preparedness is storm awareness. During the season, it is of utmost importance to pay attention to the latest local weather forecasts, as hurricanes do not suddenly form or strike. There are various methods of advanced notification. Utilizing such may be the difference between a favorable outcome and disaster. Both television and radio serve as excellent mediums with up-to-the-minute storm path information in the wake of a hurricane. Another method of tracking a hurricane may be only arm's length away. Your smartphone or tablet can be your most valuable tool before, during, and after a storm, providing countless numbers of apps with crucial hurricane information. Many apps allow you to track storms with moving radar and satellite imagery, plus offer alerts, current conditions, forecasts, advisories, and even video.
This hurricane preparedness tip was brought to you by your community radio station, Radio Cayman 89.9 FM.
From district to district, moving through the waters to Cayman Brac and Little Cayman. Your station, your voice. All things Cayman. One radio, many people. This is home.
Radio Cayman in the Cayman Islands.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman. Your voice, your choice. Local, regional, international. This is headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom.
Today's biggest news.
Cayman sees its 13th road death of the year. Just after 2 p.m. on Sunday, 911 got a report of a motorcyclist falling off his vehicle at a Parker's Raceway event in Town. The man was carried to the hospital by ambulance where he was pronounced dead by the attending doctor. Technical problems have scuppered NASA's launch of the first rocket in its Artemis project, which aims to send astronauts back to the moon. The U.S. Space Agency had a 2-hour window for liftoff from Kennedy Space Center in Florida, but the launch has been canceled as engineers failed to fix an engine bleed. NASA's most powerful rocket ever, known as the Space Launch System, is set to send the unmanned capsule Orion back around the moon. NASA hopes that by 2025, it will be able to send astronauts back to the lunar surface for the first time in more than 50 years. It wants to land the first woman and first person of color on the moon, but for this mission, the cargo is non-human and includes a Shaun the Sheep toy. Those are your headlines. I'm Karsley Fuller.
For the latest in news and information,
follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Download the Radio Cayman app or log on to our website, radiocayman.gov.ky.
For the record, with Ort Connor.
Initiating system.
For information that matters. For the record, with Ort Connor. Continues right now on Radio Cayman.
Good morning. Welcome back to For the Record. We're talking about the Financial Assistance Bill 2022. That discussion has taken place with Minister Andre Ebanks, who has constitutional responsibility for investment, innovation, and social development. Also in the studio with us, the Acting Chief Officer, Ms. Tamara Ebanks, and the Senior Policy Advisor, Mayor Petkovsek. Minister, over to you.
I think where we left off before the break was discussing, which was an important question, the level of documentation required, because you had posed, the premise of your question was for individuals to understand that the department has to do relevant checks, not just by law, but actually establish that there's a true need. Mm-hmm. But to try to offset that administrative burden, we are seeking to make it as easier as possible in relation to improving the technology that's used. So I'll allow the Chief Officer to go through some of the technological improvements we've made.
Thank you, Minister. So we've been reimagining, obviously, how the needs assessment unit can actually better serve the people. So what we've done in December 2021, the unit actually launched its online application portal, which can be accessed by visiting their website. So if you have a Digicel number as well, you can access NAU's online application portal, even if you don't have access to data or Wi-Fi. We're also looking at Flow actually providing us the similar access. Mm-hmm. So for the listening public's information, through the online application portal, we have had about 170 applications since its launch, and we expect the uptake to be much more. Mm-hmm. Additionally, in July 2022, the unit actually changed its renewal policy for older persons and persons with disabilities which are permanent in nature to be able to complete a continuation certificate. So if their circumstances had not changed, this policy change is intended to reduce the burden on the people who actually need the financial assistance. So that's some of the things that we are doing with the unit itself, especially to improve on the technology side, as the Minister did mention.
Excellent, excellent.
And then we've also, the department, for those who may not be technologically savvy, still continues with district days, where they're actually out there posted in different districts and take applications in person physically.
One of our listeners was querying, it was mentioned earlier that you will have a permanent person in the sister islands as well, in the BRAC, and they wanted to know whether, and you might not be able to say this, I guess it depends on your recruitment, the need for recruitment, whether or not that person will be a BRACer or will be someone sent over from Grand Cayman there as well. They felt that, they thought that it was important for the person to be familiar with the surroundings, under which they're going to be.
Well, ministers are not involved in hiring.
Right, yes.
So I'll leave that to the civil service to answer. But I would say the BRAC already has staff.
Yeah.
It's just that the staff are relocating to a new premises away from DCFS from the BRAC.
Okay.
What has been slightly out of joint for several months is that there's been an accounts officer and a receptionist, but not an assessment officer to actually do the financial assessments. And a lot of the clientele from the BRAC are elderly. So we're seeking to ensure that post is filled with the actual financial assessment and also include the new premises. Whether that person will be a BRACer, I will defer to the civil service.
That will definitely just be up to recruitment and who does apply for the post. The post has closed now, and they are in process of doing the recruitment, so it's just dependent on who comes forward for the positions.
Sure, certainly.
Yeah. But it's not that the question is unreasonable.
Absolutely.
You can see the logic behind the question, but there is, of course, a process.
I'll speak to the end of the legislation. So Part 6 is standard legislation practice, where it goes into regulations that Cabinet may be able to develop. We'll talk about some of the things that we are currently considering for regulations in a little while. But it also speaks to savings and transitional provisions, which are specifically talking about the people who are currently accessing services or applying for services and what happens to them when the legislation is commenced. So key pieces of that are anyone who is accessing services will continue being able to access services as if this legislation had not been commenced until their service expires. So if you had been granted financial assistance for 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, that will continue. If you are an older person or a person with a permanent disability, currently called permanent financial assistance under the unit's work right now, that will continue. You will be able to continue receiving financial assistance, essentially being grandfathered in to this new program.
Another concern that I have heard voiced in the past has to do with those persons who may be receiving financial assistance, especially the permanent ones. How do we protect them, especially when they're in a vulnerable position that others may take advantage of their situation from a financial standpoint? What protections are in place, to help them?
So there's a few different things that the unit already does in that regard, some of which are that the financial assistance offered is not offered as cash in most circumstances. It's offered directly to the vendor. So rent is paid directly to the vendor. Utilities are paid directly to the vendor. Food is provided as a food voucher. So there's limited cash going out, except where there are older persons and people with permanent disabilities. The intention is to empower them and give them access to finances that they can use as they need. And for that purpose, it is provided as cash direct deposit. And we also have it where, and this will be laid out in regulations, but someone has to access financial assistance for themselves unless they have strictly given permission for someone else to access it on their behalf. And also, if the director has the ability to revoke someone else being granted financial assistance if they see it's being used incorrectly.
Excellent.
You mentioned before the break how long we can stay, because I honestly didn't realize it was going on 9 o'clock until you said something. So we'll try to stay for at least maybe say another 30 minutes.
Excellent.
Before
Great.
Other forces dictate my departure.
Excellent. Great.
But you also mentioned before the break when we're seeking to have this legislation debated. So we're seeking to have this legislation debated in a proposed meeting of Parliament that will hopefully occur in September next month. I think that might be towards the latter half of next month. So hopefully that notice is given, and this bill would have been published within the requisite 28-day period, outside of the 28-day period, to be able to be presented and debated. And it's important because it then sets the stage and the framework in which will then allow us, if Parliament and Lord willing we get there and it's passed, to then work on completion of the regulations, operational aspects, and then it just sets everything in motion.
And the regulations will be designed in such a way that they would only need cabinet approval as opposed to legislative approval?
Cabinet approval. So under the bill now, it grants, there's a regulation making provision under the bill now to grant cabinet and all the matters in which cabinet can make regulations for. And that might be a good segue to maybe for myself to maybe give a summary of the regulations. Because what we don't want is a situation in which Parliament willing and Lord willing the bill is passed, and then you have to wait 2 years. And then people say, well, what happened to the financial assistance bill? Oh, yeah, but they haven't done the regulations. We would like, as much as possible, to have a full commencement come January 2023.
Okay.
So the regulations we're seeking to cover, and this is where it's more in the detail, more in the weeds, of the number of days in which the department must complete an application, try to expedite that. The exemptions for emergency circumstances. So I spoke about the 3 categories of persons that are eligible: Caymanians, a guardian of a dependent of a dependent Caymanian, and then also a person who's a spouse or a civil partner of a Caymanian. There may be a circumstance where you might have to suspend that as the usual rule in case, say, for example, there's a pandemic, there's a fire. We have to contemplate what are going to be those exceptional circumstances. Also, we have to consider the specific provisions relating to household sizes. So what are the amounts that are going to be allotted per household size? What's the appropriate amount for household styles, say 1 to 3 persons, 4 to 6, 6 and above. That's going to require collaboration with, say, ESO, Treasury, to make sure that we're within budget, but still be able to allot a portion that someone can actually live on. So there's after, Lord willing, passing of and Parliament willing of the legislation, there's still a good deal of work that has to go into actually thinking about and teething the actual operational aspects of it, and make sure that they work not just for the client but work within budget allocations.
Okay. I just made a note of a question here, and mention was made of landlords previously, and this is going to be a 2-part question: whether or not you're looking in any way to partner with other government agencies when it comes to housing assistance. We see the pressure being brought about in terms of housing. Now we see most housing that is being constructed in the Cayman Islands are being constructed for the higher income bracket as opposed to lower income, whether it's either for sale or for rental. We have heard comments in the past about landlords not wanting to rent to certain government agencies and departments because of sometimes the lag in receiving their payments. Anything being done to address those concerns or those perceived problems?
I don't think that there's any question about them being perceived. I think that they're real. So at the moment, NEU's housing accommodation relies primarily, if not almost entirely, on private landlords. That can pose several challenges. It can pose a challenge to the cost to the government because it depends on the fluctuation of the rental market, the amount of room stock that's available, because there may be private landlords that might not accept NEU clients. So there's, I think, 2 different streams of work, and I'm going to try to separate them so they don't get commingled. There's what I think a challenge right now in the country of affordable housing for the working Caymanian who ordinarily under certain market conditions would have been able to afford, but now things are beyond their reach. That's one set of housing. The other set of housing that more so directly affects the NEU client is what we would call in other countries social housing, where the government has a certain level of room stock that is then available for an NEU or a financial assistance client, which is different from the first set of housing, where the person may not have anything to contribute towards it. So we have been contemplating with a couple of private sector entities being able to collaborate and assign Crown land that's already in the name of the Social Development Ministry, and whether or not we can erect social housing. And the construction of these has come a long way over time. I mean, people might have unfortunate memories of the way that maybe social housing was prepared or constructed in other countries where they're like tin cans. But from the models that we've seen so far, this has become really advanced and strong structures that can be erected quickly. So what will be required in that part of the exercise is, number one, finding the land, how many people you should assign to that, and making sure that there's an even distribution, because you would want the population to be mixed in a sense. So you wouldn't necessarily want, say, 100 clients on one piece of property. You'd want to be able to utilize the pieces of Crown land throughout Grand Cayman and be able to mix it in community, so that sociological studies show that the more that you wake up in the morning, you see other people going to work, you're more inclined to also get up and go to work. And some of the private sector entities that we're talking to would like to combine that with what they call corporate staffing housing, where there isn't enough room stock for necessarily laborers. So that's a whole other piece of work that we're trying to bring online as part of this, as we are reimagining the whole space. But it isn't something that I think that you can take lightly. It's going to take thought into, well, who will maintain the actual structure, what level of service, a unit that would have to be there to support particular clients depending on what the needs are. The budget, I think, would be largely addressed because you're paying rent to landlords. Now you would just be diverting that stream to help with the mortgage payment for the erecting of these facilities. But at the same time, the NEU rental stream also assists middle-class landowners, Caymanians right now, who might rely on that. So you would probably, I think, at the end of the day, want a mix of private landlords as well as a mix of social, what I call social housing.
Yeah, that's
it requires thought. So hopefully we get through this part. The other thing, if we're not going to a break now, that will require thought while we're on the same stream about a unit to assist. I think we've been talking about it within the ministry, of that portion of the bill that talks about trying to have individuals return to work. I don't know that that's going to just happen automatically just because you see it printed in the legislation. We're going to have, I think, a small unit within the ministry. And in some jurisdictions they call it case management, where there's a set of, say, 10 applicants assigned to someone. I'm just doing hypothetical numbers. And then that person is to help guide the person through the system towards the programs to work, and hopefully get them to a stage where they're self-sufficient, and then you move on to the next one. So we've been talking in the ministry in terms of next year whether or not there needs to be a unit that actually is the bridge to self-sufficiency, that takes you by the hand and helps guide you through the system.
Okay. Folks, we're going to take a commercial break. When we return, the conversation will continue. So please stay tuned for the record. We'll be back shortly.
At Doctor's Hospital, we know life happens, and usually when you least expect it. So when unexpected medical issues arise, you need quality care close to home. Located in the heart of Georgetown, our accomplished team of physicians and medical staff treat minor urgent conditions such as migraines, chest and abdominal pain, shortness of breath, burns, broken bones, open wounds, and more. 24 hours, 7 days a week with no appointment necessary. Peace of mind is important when life happens. At Doctor's Hospital, we're always here just for you. Need to speak to someone? Call 949-6066.
What's that? No sugar, same amazing taste? Coca-Cola Zero Sugar is here to stay. Classic taste, pure satisfaction. Be sure to stop into any Tortuga location and get your own case of Coke Zero. Or grab an ice-cold one straight from the cooler. Brought to you by Tortuga Distributors Limited. Coca-Cola, taste the feeling, Cayman.
So much happening so fast, too much. It is hard for me to follow my healthcare instructions. The private counseling with West Bay Pharmacy literally saved my life.
At West Bay Pharmacy, we know how complex medications can be. Our pharmacists are delighted to offer you personalized one-on-one healthcare counseling, free medication review, therapeutic callbacks, and we will liaise with your physician to ensure you receive the best in quality medical care.
Quality of life has a whole new meaning with the right pharmacy to support you. Thank you, West Bay Pharmacy.
West Bay Pharmacy in Centennial Towers. Convenient quality care is just around the corner. Now you can WhatsApp your West Bay Pharmacy prescriptions to 516-0777.
How confident are you that your golden years will be, well, golden? Introducing the RF Pension Plan, offering innovative solutions to help you retire your way. Formerly the Fidelity Pension Plan, the RF Pension Plan now delivers strong investment returns, superior management, and additional products designed to help you meet and exceed your financial goals. Contact RF today to find out how you can unlock a 25% discount. Make your golden years golden with the RF Pension Plan. Learn more at rfgroup.com.
For the record, with Ort Connor.
Initiating system. For information that matters. For the record, with Ort Connor. Continues right now on Radio Cayman.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. We're talking about the Financial Assistance Bill 2022. That conversation is taking place with Minister Andre Ebanks and his support staff. Two comments from our listeners here. This person says, what a breath of fresh air to hear such an educated and eloquent group of young professionals properly explaining and drafting new laws and processes. No mudslinging, just dealing with issues and solving problems. Our future seems to be in good hands. And another one of our listeners wanted to know whether or not our panel, whether or not they're familiar with Habitat for Humanity. I think that has to do with building homes for needy people. It's completely slightly different concept. And we do have some organizations here in the Cayman Islands that are involved in that as well. But I'll let you address that, Minister.
Yeah, we're familiar with it slightly. It's a slightly different. We're familiar with it, full stop. But it's a slightly different concept.
Yeah.
But it still touches on, and maybe that's a good point to recap, that the rental housing issue is what we'd be looking for is a government partnership to allow the entity that we partner with to construct and manage and take that out of government's hands.
Yes.
What we're supplying is diverting the rental income, or a portion of it, that's already being distributed now to the project to bring the financing of it so that there's no additional strain on our budget. It's the same rental money that's just being diverted, and make sure that we partner with the right group that can manage the rest of it.
Right. And you have said that it is still the intention of retaining that mixture where you have the private sector out there who may be catering to some of your clientele as well. That will still remain in place. So there will be various aspects of it rather than being fully concentrated in one area.
And and what some of the proposals we looked at have, like I said, incorporated whether or not there needs to be smaller rental units for the working person. Like, I think of myself to 2001, when I was a law student. I can't crash with Dad anymore. I got too old for that. But I can't afford a house because I'm a law student. And back in those days, I don't know if he still has them, but Mr. A.L. Thompson had some studio apartments above where, remember the appliance center used to be across the road? And he had a warehouse there, and he had 10 or 12 studio flats. I think it was maybe $700 or $600 a month, but you couldn't need that because I was a Caymanian who couldn't afford anything else. I was a law student, but I didn't want to live at home anymore. So you're still going to need that mix, and that probably is a good mix to have with folks who are trying to catch themselves and hopefully return to work.
Okay, one of our listeners was making a suggestion, and they said that they think that it would be a great value if they could have a family psychologist at the needs assessment unit. Says the majority of staff, in their humble opinion, is really in the wrong jobs. Any comments on that? I would take out the last part and just talk about the a family psychologist at the unit itself. Do we have persons with those competences within the NAU?
So I think for the task that the staff ordinarily needs to do, which is to assess your financial needs, that's their competency. What I spoke about earlier in terms of trying to build what I call a case management unit, it would be that unit in the ministry to then guide the person to that service that may already exist. Otherwise, you could organizationally try to build everything into the financial assistance department and overload its budget and its resources when it might be available in another ministry. So the key is to make sure that you can try to get a bridge for that person to be able to access that service, not necessarily that it needs to be resident in the department. But it's a good question.
Yeah. Okay.
And maybe we can just touch on briefly before we may run out of time. Some of the other aspects and features we're trying to add to the regulations that have come directly from stakeholder feedback within the focus groups.
So the minister spoke earlier about the focus groups we conducted with clients, government, nonprofit, private sector, because everybody is interacting across the board with people who are accessing financial assistance or may at some point need to access financial assistance. And there were some key pieces that we heard over and over and over again, one of which, we know that accommodation, we've been talking about it already, it is a huge challenge for people to try and find adequate accommodation. And so one of the key pieces in there is rental deposits. And they have come up time and time again. We know that they are a drain on our nonprofit sector, but they also pose challenges for government to be able to provide. So it is a potential consideration right now as we turn our attention to the regulations. Also mortgages and other challenges that people have with rental accommodation, because right now the department is only providing rental support. Addition to that are vulnerable groups and what exemptions could be made for vulnerable populations in terms of conditions, in terms of amounts of assistance, and different things that they are, the eligibility piece, for example, and as well as adding different services. So we know one of the biggest things that people want to hear about are what amounts are going to be increasing, what are some of the services that are being added. Those will be in the regulations.
Okay.
And so they will come. We are considering certain things, recognizing cost of living changes and looking at the data that's available to us. But one of the big things we're considering is the possibility of adding internet, transportation, and phone. Those are 3 services that the department doesn't currently provide. But we know, thinking back to who is accessing services, older persons and families, we want them to be connected and productive members of society and of our community. And so it's whether budget would allow to be able to add additional services as well.
And the reason that I think transportation comes up because it's one of the barriers to employment. So you might have a nice piece of legislation that says, yes, as a condition you will work, but how do I get there? So then the whole project could fall down on that one aspect. So that's why we're going to try to make the argument to have that as an additional feature to spend. In addition to that, the internet, COVID has taught us that a lot of things can be done from home. So it's not necessarily that the person might be asked by the relevant employer or internship to come in physically. What if they ask them to process data at home and they don't have internet? So we're going to have to try to figure out more innovative ways to ensure that we make it as feasible as possible for the person to participate.
Excellent. Okay.
So I don't know at this day we're coming up on 9:30. If we want to start to enter into closing comments, or if you have any other questions on the line, we could.
Nothing at this point. What we'll do, we do have one here. This person says that I'm very moved. I'm very moved by the heart Minister Andre has. It would be amazing if all our ministers cared for our people's needs like he does. Minister Andre has done great things in a little time he has been elected. I pray God's richest blessings and guidance on him. That's a good point to take a commercial break, folks. Please stay tuned.
We all care. Everyone cares.
Yes.
Everyone. Civil service included.
Certainly. So we're going to take a commercial break, folks. Please stay tuned. For the record, we'll be back shortly.
What's that? No sugar, same amazing taste? Coca-Cola Zero Sugar is here to stay. Classic taste, pure satisfaction. Be sure to stop into any Tortuga location and get your own case of Coke Zero. Or grab an ice cold one straight from the cooler. Brought to you by Tortuga Distributors Limited. Coca-Cola, taste the feeling, Cayman.
JN money touchdown. Send the money now. Reach wow. You say you need some money. JN money, I can send it in a hurry. Get through quick when you come collect your cash, or use your money card and swipe it in a flash. Send funds to any bank, yeah. Pay your bills quick, yeah. Low fees, you know what it, yeah. JN money, we are pick, yeah. Send and receive funds at any JN Money location. It's fast, affordable, and convenient. Money touchdown with JN Money. Send funds to any bank, yeah. Pay your bills quick, yeah. Low fees, you know what it, yeah. JN Money, we are pick, yeah.
Call 345-945-2014 for details. Available at JN Money locations across the Cayman Islands.
We think it's time you crossed over to a new vehicle. And with the Toyota Corolla Cross, now at Vamt Motors, you have plenty of reasons to make the switch. The crossover body and hybrid engine is a sleek design in a sturdy structure with a spacious interior that opens to extensive cargo space. Stuck in traffic? The high-performance self-charging hybrid system automatically switches between gas and electric vehicle mode, helping you lower both fuel costs and carbon emissions. The Corolla Cross has full LED lighting inside and out, an integrated display audio system with energy monitor, and a dual-zone climate control system to ensure comfort for all. Test drive the new Toyota Corolla Cross Hybrid today at Vamt Motors, Walkers Road.
Breitling Watches are defined by quality, innovation, and style. And you have the chance to win one in August during Kirk Freeport's 50th anniversary sweepstakes. Each month, lucky shoppers have the chance to win a piece of jewelry or a watch from luxury brands. Every purchase of $100 at any Kirk Freeport store gains you entry into the monthly drawing. So stop in today. Next up, September's prize is the Chopar Happy Dreams bracelet. View terms and conditions on KirkFreeport.com.
For the record, with Ort Connor.
Initiating system. For information that matters. For the record, with Ort Connor. Continues right now on Radio Cayman.
Good morning. Welcome back to For the Record. We're extremely grateful to Minister Andre Banks and his team for agreeing to stay on longer. But as I say, all good things must come to an end at some point in time. So want to give you an opportunity whenever you're ready for closing comments, but also give you an opportunity to touch on any area that you may not have touched on yet as well. So I'll let you be my co-host for the rest of the show, and you can direct everything, Minister.
Thank you, sir. And I appreciate the time today to make this presentation.
Certainly.
I think some of the remaining points that we want to touch on, we'll do so in each of our individual closing comments.
Excellent.
So I'll start with Mahir.
Okay.
Thank you, Minister. So one of the things that the Minister touched on at the beginning is the OAG report from 2015 that we are still responding to. And this legislation with the regulations, when commenced, will address 5 critical pieces of that legislation, particularly Recommendation 7, which is that the government should follow through on the 2013-14 Strategic Policy Statement to amend the Poor Persons Relief Law and develop accompanying regulations, and Recommendation 11, which was that the government should develop appropriate appeals processes to ensure that all applicants for benefits are provided with information about how to appeal decisions. So 2 critical things and additional ones, which we are going to be addressing when this commences, as well as other pieces of the OAG report that we're addressing through other aspects that we've been discussing as well. But with that, I just want to thank you for having us here today, and thank you for your time, and to all your listeners.
Thank you very much as well.
Thank you. So I think what we want to emphasize to the listening public is that, after the passing of this legislation, we are going to work very hard on operationalizing the act itself once it's passed. So we'll be looking at the operations and how the department functions, and how we can actually put this legislation into action. In my closing, I just want to encourage consultations by providing the email address that we've created for the consultation. It's mofsd@gov.ky, and September 14th is the last day for us to receive any feedback. Please review the legislation and give us some feedback so that we can take any comments and further concerns into consideration. And I also want to say thank you very much for having me on the show as well, and it was really good to be here with the team and the minister.
Thank you for being here as well. Minister, over to you, sir.
Thank you. First of all, thank you to those who accompanied me this morning. Acting Chief Officer Tamara Eubanks, thank you for all your work. Mahir, thank you for all your work, and all the rest of the team. The Acting Deputy Chief Officer Will Roberts was also instrumental. He's on holiday this week, right? Yes. He returns next week, but he was also instrumental. The department themselves were instrumental in getting us to this stage, as well as all other aspects of the ministry, staff, and cross ministries and departments. In my view, I couldn't be more humbled than to have the support of the caucus in the cabinet to have gotten the approval to present and publish the bill. In my humble opinion, I think the House, if there is indeed a sitting in September, the House has an extraordinary opportunity, in my view, to do away and repeal and replace a piece of legislation that's no longer fit for its legislative provisions, no longer fit in name to use poor persons relief, to have a modern piece of financial assistance legislation, and to rebrand and reorganize the department to meet the needs of our people and to try to reduce the stress and the burden. I think it's an extraordinary opportunity that the House has. And I would hope that we all see the wisdom of that and the legislation indeed passes. Once it passes, the work will only, in a sense, begin. It would be a historic occasion, but we would not be able to rest on our laurels. As the acting chief officer says, we'd now have to operationalize, and so we're planning that now. But I would like to thank all, again, who were involved, particularly the stakeholders that gave incredible feedback, insightful feedback. We couldn't have gotten this far without them. So I want to thank you for your time. I know that we'll be on with your colleague, talk today on Wednesday, lunchtime, to ensure we get the message out as widely as possible. But thank you for your time, and thank you for all those who tuned in.
Okay, thanks for being here as well. And as we could see from the feedback that we've been receiving from our listening and viewing audience, that they have really been following and are certainly interested in this piece of legislation as well. And I have no doubt that personally that it will receive passage in our parliament. Things have changed in the Cayman Islands. While life may have been simple and uncomplicated in the past, it is much more complex now. So many more things, so many more challenges, for individuals and families, to deal with as well. So thank you for all that you are doing to help the people of the Cayman Islands and to keep us safe and prosperous as well. With that, Ms. Susan, we're going to take a commercial break. Folks, please stay tuned. We will have about 15 minutes for open line. When we return, please stay tuned for the record. We'll be back shortly.
So much happening so fast, too much. It is hard for me to follow my health care instructions. The private counseling with West Bay Pharmacy literally saved my life.
At West Bay Pharmacy, we know how complex medications can be. Our pharmacists are delighted to offer you personalized one-on-one healthcare counseling, free medication review, therapeutic callbacks, and we will liaise with your physician to ensure you receive the best in quality medical care.
Quality of life has a whole new meaning with the right pharmacy to support you. Thank you, West Bay Pharmacy.
West Bay Pharmacy in Centennial Towers. Convenient quality care is just around the corner. Now you can WhatsApp your West Bay Pharmacy prescriptions to 516-0777.
Make your house into a home. Welcome to Brand Source Home Gallery, your source for premium products and a premium experience. We'll design and install your dream kitchen with crafted cabinets complemented with elegant appliances. We'll fill it with quality houseware and cookware. Custom designed closet and storage solutions organize and beautify any area. And with the finest bedding, you'll get a perfect night's sleep knowing Brand Source Home Gallery has everything you need to make your house a home.
Tune in every Monday through Friday at 12 p.m. for Radio Cayman's Midday Newscast. Radio Cayman, the People's Station, your trusted official source for the latest news. The 12 p.m. news is proudly brought to you by Health City Cayman Islands. World-class healthcare within your reach.
For the record, with Ort Connor.
Initiating system. For information that matters. For the record, with Ort Connor. Continues right now on Radio Cayman.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. No guests in the studio. We can't have the phone lines open, but what I wanted to share with our listening audience, there's an article in the Turks and Caicos Sun newspaper. It was written on the 23rd of August, 2022. The editor of that online newspaper is a gentleman by the name of Mr. Hayden Boyce. And if that name sounds familiar, Mr. Hayden Boyce at one point in time worked in the Cayman Islands for the late Mr. Desmond Seals and his newspaper, Cayman Net News. This article is entitled, Only 19 Persons Recommended for Turks and Caicos Islander Status. 19 persons, and I'm going to share the details with you. Now, in the Cayman Islands, there was a period of time where over a 10-year period, there was a moratorium, and whether or not it was legal or not, it was never challenged legally. There was a moratorium that was placed on the granting of Caymanian status by the board. Now, other status, other types, categories, of Caymanian status were processed. So, for instance, if you acquired Caymanian status by birth or by a connection with the Cayman Islands where the chief immigration officer needed only to acknowledge that by operation of law you possessed Caymanian status, any grants by the board were not allowed for 10 years. And I think what the government of the day did, they said, but I think they were required to have either 10 grants of Caymanian status per year, and they said, okay, we're going to set the quota at 0. I'm not sure whether or not that was legal, but like I said before, it was never challenged. But I'm going to share this with you just simply to show you how two overseas territories can differ so much in terms of their legislation. And while some people in the Cayman Islands may feel that we bend over backwards to grant Caymanian status in the Cayman Islands, thereby bringing pressure on our infrastructure and our services, but also bringing pressure to bear on our cultural identity, it goes to show you if the legislative will is there, that things can be done, because in the Turks and Caicos Islands, they have done so. So the article talks about the fact that hundreds of persons applied for the Turks and Caicos Islanders status between 2016 and 2019, but only 19 were recommended by the newly formed Turks and Caicos Islander Status Commission. The Sun can confirm that the Commission recommended 8 persons for 2016, none for 2017, 10 for 2018, and 1 for 2019. The successful applicants from 2016, and it goes to give the names of those persons who were granted, who were successful then. Goes on to say that those successful for 2018 and lists those as well. Then it talks about the fact that only one person was successful from the 2019 applicants. Now, how do they do it in the Turks and Caicos Islands? It says that the current members of the Turks and Caicos Island Status Commission and gives the name of those, the composition of that commission as well. It says the commissioners considered all applications and served notice in accordance with Section 6, subsection 3 of the Turks and Caicos Islands Status Ordinance, and in accordance with Section 4 of the ordinance, they made recommendations to Governor Nigel Dakin in terms of Section 13, subsection 1b of the ordinance as read with particular sections and stuff like that. It goes on to say up to the time of writing this report, there was no information available on applications for 2020 and 21. The article points out that although members of the commission have made their recommendation, the newspaper understands that the governor has the final say in who is granted Turks and Caicos Island status. So while, I feel quite excited about the other portions of the legislation that sets up a commission and they make their recommendations, I certainly would not be in agreement with the governor having the final say of who is granted status if such a system were adopted in the Cayman Islands. The article goes on to point out that the applicants for Turks and Caicos Islands status, all of whom were published in the newspaper, something that we discontinued here in the Cayman Islands, and the only publishing that ever took place after a new immigration law came into effect was the over 2,000 grants of status in 2003. But here we see in the Turks and Caicos that all of those persons who were granted Turks and Caicos Islands status, they were published in the newspaper, including several permanent residents who have lived in the Turks and Caicos Islands for many years and have made significant contributions and investments in the country. The article goes on to point out that according to the Ministry of Border Control's website, Turks and Caicos Islander status is the highest immigration status accorded to persons who acquire the status and or bestowed the status upon application in accordance with the laws of the Turks and Caicos Islands. Goes on to say, given that Turks and Caicos Islander status is the highest immigration status locally, only Turks and Caicos Islanders can do the following: vote in an election, apply for and be considered for the acquisition of residential crown land, apply for and be considered for the grant of a TCI, that is Turks and Caicos government scholarship, and apply for and be considered for the grant of a business license to operate in the restricted business license category. And that was all pointed out by the website. So I share this article with you to point out that those persons who say that we need to change our laws and our regulations and our policies as regards the granting of Caymanian status, and there are those who advocate for status to be granted only on grounds of descent. That means that you have some connection, some bloodline connection with the Cayman Islands or through marriage. And then there are those who believe that if it's granted through marriage, that the length of time that the law now allows for a marriage to subsist before the granting of status, that should be drawn out for a longer period of time as well. So for those who advocate for those things, we know that it is possible if we craft our legislation in such a way that we're not obligated to grant as many, to afford as many grants of Caymanian status as people, those persons who qualify. There are those persons who advocate that we should go back to a quota system as well. We know, and I know, that a former minister for the Overseas Territories, when concerns were raised to her about the granting of status, she pointed out to authorities at that point in time that our problems lay with the granting of permanent residence and how we go about granting permanent residence, because that is the stepping stone. The granting of permanent residence is a stepping stone towards Caymanian status as well. We have two callers that we're going to try to accommodate before we close the show off. Let's go to the phone lines. First caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. How are you?
I am well. And all that the lady said, after that little you would call it public notification and nothing, I didn't hear one other word about that. And every day immigration is hitting us upside the head, and I don't see how it's going to get any better. Anyway, I was just calling to say good morning and have a nice day.
Okay, thank you very much for that caller. Next caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning, my friend.
Good morning, good morning. How are you?
I'm fine, thanks. If someone is able to buy, like a condo in the Cayman Islands, are they eligible to apply for status?
No, property alone does not make you eligible to apply for status. It may have factor into your application for permanent residence, having some investment in the Cayman Islands. But I do believe that if you're talking about persons of independent means being able to reside in the Cayman Islands, that there are provisions under our current legislation that will allow persons to live here without having the need to work for, I think it's up to 25 years as a permanent resident. It is limited, and one of the reasons that they have attached a number of years onto it is because the British Nationality Act says that you have to be free from any restriction on the time that you may remain in the territory as part of your qualification to be considered as a British Overseas Territory citizen. And as you know, once you acquire British Overseas Territory citizenship, then that is, again, puts you on your way towards the granting of or applying for Caymanian status. So by attaching the 25-year period to those persons of independent means, it doesn't allow them to qualify for permanent residence. But again, to answer your question, just the ownership of property itself does not allow you to qualify for status or even permanent residence, but it may be a part of it for permanent residence.
Okay, but it sounds like, according, if I get your information right, that they can be here for like 25 years, to live.
Yeah, of independent means, yeah.
Good. Well, quickly now, I know time is not on my side, but if you take a look at what's happening here, me and the other person was talking about it, with all of these condos going up, we will be outnumbered 3-1 in the next few years. 3-1 foreigners will be 3-1 Caymanian in this island. So that is something I see that is very serious, and I think we should certainly take a look at that because time is not on top of our side. OC, have a good day. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you very much, caller, for that. I agree with that caller, and I believe that is one of the reasons why we can justifiably argue that we need to change our legislation when it comes to the granting of Caymanian status, when it comes to the granting of permanent residence as well. What we don't have control over is the granting of British Overseas Territory citizenship. That is controlled by the United Kingdom because it falls under the British Nationality Act. But we determine how an individual gets to that point. And how we determine that is by granting them the right to reside permanently in the Cayman Islands without conditions, without any preconditions. When I say that, what I mean is that if you have been granted permanent residence with the right to work, but that permanent residence is indefinite, it has no ending to it, it's not for 25 years, it is indefinite, then after being a permanent resident, that is being free from any period of time, any condition on the period of time that you may remain in the Cayman Islands, that puts you on the road to be able to obtain British Overseas Territory citizenship. Right? In our local legislation now, in our immigration legislation, obtaining British Overseas Territory citizenship is a pathway towards Caymanian status. We need to disconnect. We need to remove that connection between British Overseas Territory citizenship, which is conferred by the United Kingdom under the British Nationality Act. We need to remove that connection between that and what we grant here in the Cayman Islands under our local legislation, which is Caymanian status. The fact that we are poised to be overrun, to be outnumbered, to have our culture and our heritage dwarfed, not to mention, how can I stick this in there? The fact that they're even knocking down our quote-unquote slave walls as well these days, and saying, well, if I had known it was a slave wall, I wouldn't, or if I had known the importance of it, I would not have knocked it down. I would have preserved it. So we see now how persons being unaware of our history, that they make these colossal errors in judgment, how that is happening, as well. Folks, in Cayman, we have a strong argument with a population of 71,000 persons. And the mere fact that we have over 26,000 persons residing here on work permit, and I would venture to say, this is just my guess, that a quarter of those 26,000 persons at some point in time could possibly be eligible for Caymanian status. It won't be long before we are overrun. Anyway, hopefully I can keep this conversation going at the next show, but at this point in time, we reached the top of the hour, 10 o'clock. Folks, I want to thank you for allowing Radio Cayman, and by extension For the Record, into your homes, into your vehicles, as you traverse the busy roads of the Cayman Islands, into your places of work, wherever that may be. I also want to remind you that we are our brothers and our sisters' keepers. There is always someone out there who's less fortunate than we are, and I ask you to extend a helping hand to them. If you can't do that, then I suggest you donate to a worthy charity, because we always want to consider those who need, not necessarily those who want or even those who crave. So I say to you, have a great day. Continue to support your radio station, Radio Cayman. Join Sterling Dwayne Ebanks at 12:15 for Talk Today, and as usual, we ask the good Lord to bless these three beautiful, wonderful Cayman Islands.
For the Record is brought to you by Vamped Motors, the only authorized Ford and Toyota dealership serving the Cayman Islands. Coca-Cola, available across the Cayman Islands from Tortuga Distributors. Accept no substitutes. Taste the feeling with Coca-Cola. Brand Source Home Gallery, inspiring luxury. West Bay Pharmacy, taking care of your health. And JN Money. From abroad to yard. Fast, affordable, convenient. Doctor's Hospital. Peace of mind is important when life happens. Doctor's Hospital. Always there for you. Call 949-6066.
Satisfaction is guaranteed 24 hours a day, whether it's music or information.
From Grand Cayman to Cayman Brac to Little Cayman, we've got you covered.
You ever hear a thing like that?
Radio Cayman.